Grim Stream of Perilous Lore time. Today's pretty special episode because it's the first thing that was really requested by not even listeners, kind of pre-listeners. When I first announced the idea for this show onto Facebook groups and whatnot, and I asked people for some ideas, somebody requested Albion, which is what we'll be talking about today. So I told them, yes, I will definitely cover that. I don't know a ton about Albion, but I can certainly look it up before the show. And I just said I wanted to get a little bit going with it first, kind of get used to it, that kind of thing, before I covered something as precious to a lot of people as Albion. So that is the plan for today, which is really exciting. I learned a lot reading about this over the last week, mostly today, but still, there's a lot of cool stuff here. And I was able to find a Black Library recommendation that fits with the theme, which is really exciting. So, first up, of course, is What's Gaming. Let's see, in terms of, I feel like this segment's usually the same. This past Monday, we did what we call a marathon recording of the Lost Omens podcast, our Pathfinder 2 actual play. That was a blast. We recorded through, we're past episode 20 now. It's been awesome. Next episode of that comes out tomorrow. I think it's episode 10 tomorrow, which is really cool. But that game is a blast. Even if you're not into Pathfinder, I think it's just a solid, compared to other actual plays I've listened to, I think it's just really good. We have a blast, so you're gonna have a blast listening to it, I am sure. Other than that, I downloaded Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the Switch last night because my son, who's almost 3, really likes watching Mario Kart on the SNES Classic, the mini that I have. I might be biased about Lost Omen, yeah, Danny, but legit, compared to other actual plays, I think it's really good. Not just the fact that it's us. But we got Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and it's been super fun. We're actually, all 4 of us are playing it last night, me and Danny and Lily and Felix. He doesn't really know what he's doing. He just likes to be part of it. We just have to wait for him to finish up. My phone is going crazy. I need to turn off notifications. Everybody's talking about the Lost Omens game in there. The chat for that is blowing up. But yeah, that's been super fun. It's nice to actually be able to play that with Lily. She tried it on the SNES Classic and just couldn't. She couldn't really handle it. She didn't understand how to do it. But now that she can do the motion controls, she's having a blast. So that's been super fun. I'm playing Luigi's Mansion 3 as well. Haven't done that much in the last few days, but I'll get back to it and finish that up eventually. Other than that, we have, of course, oh yeah, the Power Phase! Tomorrow night, Monday nights, 7 p.m. right here on this Twitch. If you're watching on YouTube or listening to the podcast, twitch.tv/professional casual network. And tomorrow, Danny is taking on Tim in Marvel Crisis Protocol. Interesting selection of characters. They both decided to go with the theme of characters they find attractive. We'll say it that way because I don't flag this on YouTube. So Danny ended up going with Guardians. Tim is going with, I'm not sure. I think he's going unaffiliated, actually. I don't really know. But that's going to be a good time. 15th Threat. They're doing Gamma Shelters and Wakanda Nerbs, which I don't know if we've done either of those on the show, at least not in a long time. So I figure some kind of classic scenarios. Yeah, keep it clean for the kiddos, yeah. But yeah, that's about what's gaming here. Last week I played the Inhumans horribly, and it was just, they're good. They were really great. They were really fun to play with. I just didn't do it well. So we'll jump into the Black Library recommendation for this week. So trying to stick with the theme, not always with this, but when it works, it works. I wanted to go talk about Giantslayer, the final William King Gotrek and Felix novel. So this one's interesting because it was the last one that William King wrote. He started this whole series, and it kind of left off on a cliffhanger. And the series didn't return for years. A lot of years. This was the, I want to say, 8th book in the series, I'm pretty sure. And I picked this one this week because they go to Albion. They are fighting some Chaos Warrior type thing in a snowy area, and then all of a sudden this portal opens up and they go through, and like Teclis brought them to Albion to help out with something. So we can see Teclis in the background on the cover, right above Gotrek's face, and he's like, "Hey, I need your help," basically. And they end up fighting an Albion giant, which are really really big, really cool, even bigger than typical giants. I think it was like 30 or 40 feet tall. Really cool scenes of Gotrek were like, swinging around in the thing's arms and grabbing its ear and hacking into its face and stuff like that. I like this one a lot. And when I first read it, it was the last book. There hadn't been a new book in quite a long time. So I was like, oh, he's going to die to a giant? That's pretty cool. I'm pretty okay with that. And spoiler alert, he doesn't die in this one because there's like 10 more books after this. But this one's really cool. It gives you a little bit more about Albion, the island of mist and shadows, and stuff like that. This one's cool. Nice high adventure, as of course Gotrek and Felix is known for. Uh, I don't go. I want to spend a ton of time on those things because I do want to spend a bit of time on Albion today. At first, I was like, it's going to be hard to fill the whole episode. Try to make it an hour or so with this. And then as I got reading, seeing more things that have to do directly with Albion, things I didn't know about before. It was like, oh, never mind. This will be easy to fill the time with. Um, but yeah, so let's jump right in. So the first place to get information about Albion, if I can find my right image here, is the like original book about Albion for the Warhammer Fantasy Battles, the tabletop war game, called Dark Shadows, which really was a summer campaign when they did those back in the day. I forgot to take a look at what year this was. I think it was like 2001. Actually, I'm pretty sure it was 2001 as I was looking through this. You can actually find the whole PDF online really easy if you just type in. I just typed in Warhammer Albion Summer Campaign, and it popped up, or PDF. I think I found the name Dark Shadows. I might have typed in Dark Shadows PDF and found it easy. It's 20 years old, so the gaming stuff in it, unless you want to play like 5th or 6th edition, whatever it was for, isn't really relevant, but the lore is still pretty cool. I actually had a sweet map of Albion in it, which is our only, as far as I know, the only official map of Albion, which, since we're talking about lore, probably not little known fact, I'm sure this is pretty, I keep getting my things mixed up trying to click on the right thing. Albion, of course, is kind of like the original name of the island of Great Britain, which is why it's called this. It's in the same kind of area. If you look at the world map, I'll bring up for a moment. So if we look at the old world, of course, we can see Albion is a bit to the northwest. I'm going to pull this up real big so we can see Albion on there right above where it says the old world. So if you're looking at the map, if you're thinking of the Empire, to the west is Bretonia, and if you go further west out to sea and a little north, there is Albion, which compared to our world is pretty much the same place as the island of England, so makes sense to me why it would be called that. So it has a lot of the lore for this island is based on like ancient lore, our history and myths from the island of Great Britain. So pretty cool. I think it's really cool. I love this idea. The whole mist and shadows thing is really cool. So why the whole thing is going on there? Albion is very very difficult to get to. You can't just go there. Really, you can, but it's difficult because the entire place is cloaked in mist and shadows. Why it's called that? The campaign was called Dark Shadows because it's covered. It's very hard to see anything. Most of the island is surrounded, the whole outer edge of it is tall white cliffs. It's described as often. There are very few places to land a boat, and those places that there are beaches around, you can get a beachhead, are protected by the Giants of Albion. And they love nothing more than to throw big rocks at boats that try to land there, and it's a game to them. Who could throw the biggest rock and maybe hit a boat? Which makes it very difficult to go explore here. One of my favorite little things I read about with these Giants of Albion was a Chilean explorer who came here, and where is my picture? There we go, Giants. So I had to use this picture for the Giants of Albion. I couldn't find an actual like artwork, so we have an old box of it. I love how they look though. They're very tall with thin legs, thin arms, and we have one throwing a big old rock. And then in the middle of them here we have a druid of Albion, also known as a truthsayer. But this guy came from Tilia to explore the place, and he ended up kidnapping these 3 figures and bringing them back. And now these 2 giants kind of broke out on their own, and they are now mercenaries in the old world, which is pretty cool. But yeah, so truth sayers are a really important part of. You wouldn't have Albion without truth sayers, literally. So Albion's, it's basically it's kind of like almost like the creation story of Warhammer begins in Albion. Very different from our world, of course, where the old ones we talked about a few times on here that kind of are credited with creating a lot of the sentient races, kind of set up camp here in Albion. I'm going to blow up this map even more. For those of you watching, if you're on the podcast, apologize. I'll get to more lore in just a second as I move things around on my screen. So we see we have what's called the Ogham stones. I think that's how you say it. Ogham stones. Which were used because the old ones were here. They found giants, and giants that were actually very intelligent at the time were used as like their bodyguards, basically, to keep this place safe. And all kinds of things lived here at one time. The truth sayers were men, ancient race of men that were taught like druidic magic, basically lore of life type stuff, by the old ones themselves. Elves also learned magic, but the truth sayers learned particular type of magic that they were even better than the elves at. The old ones taught dwarves runic magic. Shouldn't call it magic because dwarves might get a little upset about that, but taught them to manipulate the winds of magic through runes. That's why they do it better than anybody else. And then they kind of sent them out into the world to do their thing, and humans settled all over the place. Dwarves and elves kind of had their places they liked on their own, and then a lot of humans stayed here on this island. And then when the old ones left, they had their great catastrophe. They left the old world completely, and with that, they accidentally opened up the Chaos Gates, which allowed all the chaos magic to swirl through the world and just kind of mess things up. So during this time, the elves had settled in Uthlin, probably thousands of years. It was a long time before this happened, and they tried to kind of collect this magic and keep it from just being wild in the world. On Uthlin, they set up different stone circles and things to trap it, and it wasn't enough. So then the truth sayers on Albion did the same thing, and this is what they were better at than the elves. They set up these Ogham stones in like concentric rings throughout the island to kind of center that magic and kind of bring it in and control it a bit. And with that, they kind of isolated themselves from the rest of the world. With this swirling of magic brought these mists and shadows in and made it very difficult to get to this place and find it. Because of all this mist, it rains here constantly. They say it rains every day in Albion, which apparently is a little twist on a British saying that it rains every day in England or something like that, from what I understand is true. So now this place is known for being mostly swamps and marshes and fens. And yes, those are all different things. Because of this weather, where it rains almost constantly, a lot of the ground has become this sucking quagmire. There's lots of swampy areas. There's lots of things like quicksand type things where people can just get pulled down into a bog. Humans do still live here, these kind of primitive, savage humans, but they love it. It's interesting. One place I was getting a lot of my information from cited basically evolution, which I really liked, saying that because these people had to resort to inbreeding for so long, especially the giants were very intelligent beings, but then because they had to inbreed among not that many giants for thousands of years, they kind of lost that intelligence over time because of recessive traits showing up. But partly because of this constant weather and because of what kind of magic the truth sayers are really good at, they are masters at creating these awesome monsters called Fen Beasts, which we see on the cover of Dark Shadows. And here's a picture from the fourth Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th edition core book of a Fen Beast, which is kind of like, think Swamp Thing or Man Thing from Marvel. And he's like a giant vine swamp monster who looks awesome. I always love the look of these things. They are creatures they're just magical creatures created. They're usually basically summoned, and then they can just kind of go off on their own. They don't have to stay by their summoner. Usually, they're not intelligent on their own. They're not like sentient. They have an intelligence to be able to do things, but typically they just want to destroy They want to fight things and consume them basically to get their energy. I love Fen Beasts. They're really cool. They're very similar to like a shambling mound from fourth or from D&D, but a little bit more to it. I feel like I don't know. I've always liked the idea of like Swamp Thing and Man Thing anyway. So Fen Beasts are just kind of that in the Warhammer sense. And it's not that Fen Beasts are only in Albion. It's just where they're most known because they're more common here. The Truth Slayers typically are masters of life magic, using the winds of Gyrin. So Fen Beasts are a very natural thing for them to create. We see Fen Beasts pretty much anywhere in the world. They can be created through magic. Sometimes just the swirling winds. You can have a lot of Gyrin in one place that can just kind of randomly create a Fen Beast, which is pretty cool. And they're very dangerous. I love this. I definitely have one somewhere in the Southlands campaign. But I like Fen Beasts. They're really cool. They look awesome. We'll talk a little bit more about the Truth Sayers I've mentioned a few times now. So Truth Sayers are also known as Druids, and they're the ones that got their magic taught to them directly by the old ones and been passed down by generation and generation over thousands of years. So what they can manipulate now is like a shadow of what it used to be. They're not quite the earth-shattering wizards they were many generations in the past, but they are still potent spellcasters. They're not like studied wizards. They're not going to have grimoires and whatnot. Their magic is more of an innate understanding of how to manipulate the winds without book study, which is really cool. Uh, Truthsayers are neat because you could take them in Warhammer Fantasy Battle because of Dark Shadows, but it wasn't. There was a long time that they weren't available in a couple of editions until the Storm of Magic book came out that gave you access back to things like Truthsayers, which this picture is from. I believe this is a Dave Gallagher painting. They look really cool. I just love the idea. Of course, they're based they're based heavily on the Picts from English history. They cover themselves in like blue war paint and what stuff, except these guys can actually do magic, of course. And they specialize in life magic and beasts. So Gyrin and Grr. So love Truthsayers. These guys are kind of like the embodiment of the god, not the gods of order, but like they're kind of on the good side as opposed to their foil, I guess. If you talk about Truthsayers, that often comes along with Dark Emissaries, which we also see on the cover of Dark Shadows, along with the Fen Beast. So Dark Emissaries are really cool. They're kind of like they used to be, in a lot of cases, they used to be Truthsayers, but they were pushed to the dark side in a way by a particular figure we'll talk about in a moment. I want to spend a lot of time on because I love this guy. But Dark Emissaries are really cool. They don't always dabble in chaos magic, typically like death and shadow, but they can, of course, they can manipulate Dar, which is the chaos magic as well. If they go that way, they can have that ability. These guys they're called Dark Emissaries because they are all about the Dark Master. One of my favorite Warhammer characters we'll go into a lot more about in a moment. But these guys are not only in Albion, a lot of them are former Truthsayers that have become chaotic in a way, but they can be found just about anywhere as well. They don't always have to look like this either. I love this picture. It's really cool. They have these weird dark masks covering all their face except for like one or just like eye holes, sometimes even just one eye hole, and they have these long protruding horns coming out. Like in one picture we have 4 horns. In the cover of Dark Shadows we got 6, some of them pointing downwards. They have these gnarled looking stabs, spears, and they have long clawed fingers. Super cool. They got lots of like primitive type looking talismans, things like that. I love these guys. They just look really cool. But what do they have to do with the Dark Master? Who's the Dark Master? People might be asking. One of my favorite characters ever, which we might debate on how to pronounce this name, of course. We all know how good I am at that, especially with that weird apostrophe in the middle. My favorite demon prince, the first demon prince, Be'lakor, or Belacor. I couldn't find a good art piece of him that I like, so here is his most recent model. I know there's a new one coming out very soon. They actually just announced this on a like weekend preview. Most I guess there was some 40K. It was mostly Age of Sigmar type stuff. But the new Be'lakor model, who's probably going to be huge because this one is quite small compared to newer Demon Princes. But I love this guy. He's just he kind of looks like that typical demon with the big ragged wings, and he's got two sets of horns, and he's got that skullish face, and he's got like the backwards jointed legs with like talons and a long tail, and it looks like he could have scales and clawed hands, and he wields a big old sword. He just kind of looks like your typical demons. He always reminded me of, I think his name is Chernobog from Fantasia. Super cool. I love this guy. But Be'lakor is the Dark Master, and he's also a master of shadows. He's a shadow wizard typically. And his lore in Warhammer is so cool because he's almost a tragic figure. He was the first mortal, I assume a man, I assume human, to ascend to demon to become a demon prince. And because of that, he was just kind of overwhelmed with pride, and he thought because he was the first, he thought he was on the same level as the chaos gods, and they were like, no, you're a minion. You might be a powerful minion, but you're still a minion. He was a demon prince, which doesn't, in demonhood, doesn't get much higher than that. There's some debate whether demon or like exalted greater demons would be higher up than a demon prince, but he wasn't ever allied with one particular god either. Be'lakor was kind of like the embodiment of Chaos Undivided. He has a couple different names as well. Besides the Dark Master, he's also known as the Harbinger because of his overwhelming pride, he was kind of struck down, and he was punished by becoming the harbinger of the next herald of the end times. Anytime there was a great incursion of chaos from the north, he had to crown that champion with the crown of dominion, or domination. And he hated this with a passion because every time he did it, he thought, this should be me. I should be leading these armies. I'm the best. But he couldn't resist it. He was compelled to by the chaos gods to do this every time. He had to show up when the champion had completed their quest to get the crown of domination, and he would have to put it on their head, and there's nothing he could do about it. After the 6th time he did this, he realized that the incursions were becoming more and more frequent, and because they're getting more frequent, there was less time between, and when there was usually a lot of time between, he was slowly going crazy. He had gone crazy for quite a while. He had completely lost his mind even as a demon. But with him coming kind of back to himself and becoming lucid again, happening more and more often, he was getting more and more control and able to kind of wake himself up earlier. So one of these times he was able to wake himself before he had to crown the new herald. In this case, it was Archaon, the Lord of the End Times. He knew it was coming, but he was able to kind of send his essence out in the world. He wasn't able to physically manifest himself yet. He hadn't had that kind of privilege in a long time, like millennia. And while he was kind of searching the world for something to help him, he found Albion. And he was like, there's a lot of power here because of those Ogham stones directing the chaos magic there. He sensed that there was a lot of energy that he could potentially tap into. So the Dark Emissaries were originally Truthsayers that he kind of manipulated to his side and corrupted them himself and made them minions of chaos. So they were trying to call other people here to bring their own energies to help give Be'lakor physical form again. Which without that, there's not much he can do in the real world, which he wanted to take control of again. While he was doing this and getting this power, he realized he had some like prognostications, saw a little bit of the future there, and he saw that eventually he would lead the armies again in the end times. And he was kind of like, all right, I'm more okay with this now. But because of his duties that he could not resist in any way, he was forced to end this mission soon. And this whole thing was the summer campaign back in 2001, just before I started playing, like a year before I started playing. I really wish I would have gotten the Dark Shadows book, but wasn't ever able to actually get a copy of this. It's only like 28 pages long. I'm pretty sure it's just like a pamphlet, not even like a bound book, but I would absolutely love to get my hands on one eventually. But Be'lakor wasn't able to finish this mission. He wasn't able to quite get into physical, to create his physical form until he was whisked back to the Chaos Waste to fulfill his duty of crowning Archaon. And the timeline gets a little back and forth here because they changed things, the Storm of Chaos, and then, because this is when he finally got a model, and then they kind of retconned it into the end times years later. All that happening at the same time, I'm not sure where exactly the timeline changes for that. But I love how Be'lakor is very intertwined with Albion in that he was using this to assume his physical form, which obviously he was able to eventually because of things like the end times. With so much chaos energy rampant in the world, he was finally able to take material form on the planet, which I almost talked about Slayer, the final Gotrek and Felix book, because Be'lakor is on the cover of that, and he is obviously in the book at times, but I absolutely abhor that book and will not cover it because I wouldn't recommend it. I think it's really bad. If you want to debate that, I'm welcome. I would love to talk about it on our Discord. If you haven't joined yet, you can get on our Discord for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/professional-casual and get access to all kinds of stuff there. We've got a bunch of different tiers to give you different things. Coming up real soon, as in the next month or probably 2 months, in the next few months, I'll say, our Patreon exclusive Warhammer Fantasy 4th edition actual play called Settling the Southlands. We finally have a real name for it, where we have a new party of adventurers heading to the Southlands to try to help establish an imperial colony. I've been doing a ton of work on that lately, been looking up a lot of stuff to help flesh it out some more and really make it the best it can be, and I'm really, really excited for it, and you should be too. Really having a great time with that. We've recorded the first little bit of it so far, and it's been a blast. The characters are amazing. I'll say it here as a little sneak peek. We've got Danny, Tim, Alex, and newcomer Jess, of course, as our players, and we've got some awesome characters. In no particular order, we have a human noble who is hilarious and full of himself and just so disrespectful to other people that it's really funny. He's playing the, what do people call it? That Tim usually does. I forgot the word. Not obtuse, but that kind of thing. The objective character. We have a dwarf merchant named Gertrude, but he goes by Gertie if you're his friend, who was very sheltered as a young dwarf. It's really interesting. We have a human physician named Bethan, who is just, health is wealth. She's there to make sure everybody's healthy. And then we have a halfling rat catcher. I finally have a rat catcher at a party. I'm so excited. Liliana with her small but vicious dog named Vicious, which is so great. Really, really excited for that one. Cannot wait for that to come out, but it'll be a little while because we want to get recording ahead so we don't ever miss a week once we start. But that'll be available for patrons at the $10 tier and above. Let's see, what else we talk about with Albion? We got Be'lakor, we got Giants, Dark Emissaries, Fen Beasts. So one thing, they're not only associated with Albion, but they're most known for being mentioned. Every time Albion is mentioned, they talk about these one-eyed monsters called Femur. These guys are really cool. They've had some troubled times in Warhammer. Back when they were first created, they're often talked about as fish people, but they're kind of more reptilian, and they have one big ol' eye in the middle of their weird beastly forehead and weird horns, claws and long tails and everything. And originally in their lore, they were only able to reproduce by forcibly mating with other races, usually humans. And because of that kind of violent nature to them, they were kind of pushed out of the lore for a long time. I feel like GW realized that wasn't really, it was a bit too much for a lot of people. So they've kind of scaled back on them in terms of that violence. And I think they've changed how they reproduce, fortunately. And they got a little bit of love here and there. Again, this picture is from the Storm of Magic book, where you could take a Femur Balefiend, I think it was called, another magic user. But they are large creatures. These things are like 7-8 feet tall. In the role-playing game, they are considered large as opposed to average, which is like a human would be. And they are just nasty, evil creatures. Not always associated with chaos, but just bad news. Like, well, they're not going to be kind. They got rid of the other type of violence, luckily, but they're still just not good to run across, right? But I love the idea. The Femur are just like cool, unaffiliated bad guys in a way. They're really cool to include as like the creepy thing in the night. Most people in the Warhammer world don't know about Femur, but they'll kind of talk about them like the boogeyman, right? The one-eyed monster will get you at night kind of thing to make your kid go to bed or whatever to be good. So I like that about Femur, and it's just the idea they never got that much coverage. Like Warhammer's got a lot of awesome stuff going for it, but they could have done so much more with these original races. People for years wanted a Femur army, which would have been a lot like the Ogre Kingdoms, where you had a small army of big dudes, and it would have been really cool. And we had a couple different things. Eventually, Forge World did make models of Femur warriors, but it was like one set of 3 models, and that was it. This Femur Bale Fiend here, we never got an actual model for. It You could take it in Storm of Chaos, Storm of Magic, but it wasn't. There's no model for it. You had to make your own, which would have been cool, but I never got around to doing. So I'd love to see more with the Femur. In any capacity, I really, really love that Cubicle 7 included even a single Femur in the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th Edition core book in the Bestiary, which is just awesome that they even acknowledge them, because they're so often just pushed to the side like, what are Femur? That never happened. Don't worry about it. So I'd love to see more with them to be included, but they're often associated with Albion because of the murky, swampy area. These guys are known for living in that kind of environment. All right, so I think that about covers it for Albion. There's not much out there. There was basically that Dark Shadows book. I looked at an article on one of the Warhammer wiki pages, and their citations were the Dark Shadows book, Giantslayer, and like 1 or 2 issues of White Dwarf from probably 2000, 2001, probably around the time of Dark Shadows. So there's not that much out there. If you ever wanted to investigate Albion more in your own Warhammer fantasy roleplay game, the sky's the limit to just do what you want. Use this map as a place to get started. We got things like the Isle of Wights. It says mini burrows here. So we have lots of undead in that area. We have the Giant's Causeway, which is funny to me that is an actual place in Ireland. If you haven't look up the Giant's Causeway, it looks really cool. It's kind of hard to read a lot of we have the Great Ogham kind of in the middle of the island. We have one giant standing stone. We have giant dogs. Great dogs. Oh, because Albion is known for the raising of wolfhounds, right? The Irish in our world they'd be Irish wolfhounds, and here they're Albion wolfhounds, giant dogs that they use in war. Because there are still humans that live here. They typically are cave dwellers here. They have some settlements, some buildings, but not too much. Things you can't really build wooden structures in this place. They would be swollen all the time and not work very well. But there are humans here enough to have things like armies. They go to war with lots of chariots and infantry, and then they have units of these dogs that they'll send out. We have the Citadel of Lead, which is really cool. I think that is one place where Be'lakor went. I think that was one of his strongholds for a while. But we can see all kinds of things here. You could make a campaign out of this that could be pretty cool, and just getting there, because it is very difficult to get to and land, right? So in terms of like user or what's it called? Listener questions and things. I had one before. I asked the Discord, our Discord friends there, and Mohanaker had one for me. He said, how would you build an Albion-themed army nowadays? Says Mirror's Minis might be a good way to go, but pricey. What army list would be best? So in that Dark Shadows book, they did have some things to help create a Albion army. As far as I understand, they never released a bunch of models for it, other than Truthsayers and Dark Emissaries, and then the Albion Giants with the Druid and Fen Beasts. But I would start with Wizards as the Truthsayers, and then lots of Fen Beasts there as monsters. I don't know if he means if I were to make rules for it now, or if I would try to build one. They'd have a lot of just basic infantry of warriors, and then lots of chariots, And then you can have giants as rare choices to back it up, with Fen Beasts as well as probably a special choice. I would make them to kind of fill in those monstrous ranks and have lots of things that cause fear, and cool stuff. But you have to physically build it using Mears minis. They have a lot of cool stuff. When I was working on my Beast of Chaos army, when I converted over to Age of Sigmar, kind of unfortunately, I looked into Mears minis. They have a lot of really cool stuff. I think they're English based, so if you're on that side of the pond, good for you. I'm not positive. Let me see what else, if we had other stuff in here. Oh, they were talking about different accents as well. Because he said, Mohaneker said he couldn't join it because he was running a game where he had to work on his Glaswegian accent. And I said, what does that mean? He said, well, accent from Glasgow. And I was like, all right, I'm an American, so how is that different? Like, what, obviously, there's different accents across England. Like, there's not just one English accent. But, like, if you're talking about a Glasgowian accent, what would be considered like a typical English accent? He said probably like Cambridge, Oxford, which I thought was really interesting. He said that's typically where they got the newscasters at BBC had that accent. So that would probably be like America's first real exposure to that. Interesting here. Another patron member of our Discord, Cottonmouth MCR, says Oxbridge didn't really provide the accent for BBC. It's a deliberately neutral voice pitched high because low sounds don't transmit over early broadcasting equipment. Staccato and clearly enunciated, in fact, saying enunciated very clearly is a good trigger. The US had its own version, usually called Mid-Atlantic, based on a come over with the Mayflower northeastern states accent. It'd be hard to put sometimes to tell US posh and Brit posh apart in the 30s, such as Katharine Hepburn in Philadelphia Story, for instance. Very neat. No, I didn't know any of that. That's really cool. I know, like, my favorite, talking about, like, anchors on news broadcasts trying to talk without sounding like they're from a particular part of the country. It always makes me think of Anchorman, where Catherine Applegate's character would say she's practicing her non-regional diction so she could talk without sounding like she's from the Midwest or something. Because you think of something like England, like, obviously it's not that big of an island compared to the States, but there's still lots of different accents, especially if you start, like, I see TikToks from people from, like, up in the Highlands of Scotland. Sometimes it's hard to tell they're even speaking English, but if they were to listen to somebody from, like, the Midwest, we call Okies, from Oakland, or from from Oakland, from oh my god, then the word just totally left my head. What's the state above Texas? What is going on with my brain? Oklahoma. Oh my god. I just completely forgot the name of that state. Oh my god. They call themselves Okies, short for like Oklahomans or whatever. And their accent, they talk so fast and they have such like a weird lilt to their words that even being from America, being we live in the Northeast, is difficult to understand sometimes. Yeah, thanks. Danny said oatmeal. Yeah, I know I mess up words. So I call oatmeal yogurt and yogurt oatmeal all the time. I don't have brain damage from high fevers when I got real sick. It's not a big deal. It's just interesting to me that, these places can have such different accents. So I kind of breezed through stuff in the beginning thinking I wouldn't have time, and it looks like we'll be done a little bit early today, which, that works. Sometimes not quite an hour, sometimes a little over an hour. No set time that this show has to be. So next week, let me taking a look at the Lizard Men, one of my favorites because I love all of them. I love Lizard Men because you get to have giant dinosaurs and stuff. It's one of those armies I kind of always wished I would play, but I always knew people that played it, and I didn't want to do that double dipping thing. So when talk about Lizard Men and talk a little bit about Lustria and the Southlands, there's Lizard Men in both of those places, and kind of what they bring to the table and what makes them different from like lizard folk and things like that in things like D&D and whatnot. Lizardmen are really cool. They have a lot of different types going on, kind of like Beastmen. You got the big ones and little ones and all the things in between, and the real big ones. And they have dinosaurs all the time, and it's really cool stuff. Love Lizardmen. So that's what we're talking about next week. Tomorrow, we've got Lost Omens podcast, the Lost Omens podcast. The easiest way to find it, make sure to have the in there, or else because it's still pretty new. it doesn't show up as well in searches. So look for the Lost Omens podcast, where Danny is awesome GM. Not like the GM you got here for Grim Podcast Perilous Adventure. She's run us through the Extinction Curse adventure path, and it is a blast. It's so much fun. Definitely give that a listen to, whether you like Pathfinder or not. We don't go too nitty-gritty into the rules. It's just having a good time with a role-playing game. Also, Mondays at 7 p.m. here on this twitch.tv/professional casual network, we have, the Power Phase. We play Marvel Crisis Protocol. Danny's throwing down against Tim this week with characters they find attractive. Tuesdays, is a day of the week. Wednesdays is our Patreon Appreciation Day, where we have bonus Patreon content over at patreon.com/professional casual. We have weekly vlogs. The podcast version of this show goes up. We've got all kinds of extra stuff there. We've got sometimes behind the scenes things. Sometimes we record just kind of us bantering before and or after a show that goes up once in a while when we have some good stuff. Thursdays is a Grim Podcast of Perilous Adventure Day, my favorite show on the network because it's my baby. Our Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th edition show. We're playing through the Enemy Within campaign. We have just recently began Death on the Reich, which started out pretty harrowing. Episode 40 is Death on the Reich starting proper, and we get off to a good start there, getting some rules wrong, but having a great time that we fixed in the future episodes. Some things that we've recorded, we have fixed those. There's video for that, the Lost Omens podcast, and Friday's Elite 8 Showdown, all on the Patreon at the $5 tier and above. You can watch us having a great time, and you have a great time with us. On Fridays is the aforementioned Elite 8 Showdown with Tim and Big Chuck, as he says, where they do an 8-team eliminations, single elimination subject bracket on all, he says, everything and everything, anything and everything. This last week was to just plain old who would win in a fight. A bunch of weird, kind of random things going up against each other. Other hot topics were like best hot dog topping. Coming up soon is the best PlayStation 1 game. They did the best PlayStation 1 classic. They've done things like Nintendo 64 cult classic and the best Nintendo 64 game. Tim recently did a not really Tim's birthday of all Tim's favorite things like bees and Smash Brothers and Texas Day Brazil. It's a super fun show. As long as you're not easily offended, it's a great time. And then Saturday is kind of a day off here at the network in terms of releases, and Sundays, we've got this. We've got a Grim Stream of Perilous Lore. 2 weeks prior episode goes up on YouTube at midnight, and then 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we've got the stream where you can come and join me and have a chat and give me stuff to talk about, that kind of thing. That is it for this week, and I will see you next week when we talk about Lizardmen. So keep gaming. Bye.